Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It takes me immense pleasure to welcome you all today on behalf of Otai and our organizing partners for this web virtual seminar on role of surfactants in hand and surface sanitization in personal and home care industry. Personal and home care segments have changed and have suddenly been promoted from lifestyle category to essential commodities, leading to a huge expectations in terms of resources, innovations, and inputs. We discussed few aspects in our earlier session, which left us pondering on the avenues which have been suddenly opened up for the industry. I would request Dr. R.D. Kulkarni, Pro Vice Chancellor, Mumbai University, co-convener of the webinar, Professor of Oil Technology at ICT, who has 5 patents, have won Best Teacher Award, Best Paper Award, and Best Research Funding Award, to welcome all the participants and as well as take our participants through our earlier session as well as the seminar as well as how the seminar is being conducted. I request Dr. R.D. Kulkarni to take it forward.
Thank you, Dr. Renuka. Let me first welcome all the delegates in the capacity of co-convener to the second session of webinar and extend sincere thanks to all audience for giving enthusiastic response in terms of huge registration and equally active participation for the webinar. My dear delegates, sanitizers or disinfectant products are the active substances or preparations that contain one or more active substances, including surfactants, that are present to the user in their final form. And their function is primarily to destroy, stop the growth, make harmless, avoid, or control by way of actions. Uh, Surfactants as amphiphilic molecules are critical components in healthcare, sanitization, and hygiene products. Antimicrobial surfactant-based cleaning products are of high importance to public health, the economy, and society because of their low toxicity and effective action at low concentrations. Recent pandemic have increased their importance and relevance. Uh, Friends, in fact, if you look at the overall utilization of the surfactants, then in terms of home care products, we find that sodium salts of linear alkyl benzyl sulfonate, alkyl ether sulfate, methyl ester sulfonate are used. On the other hand, non-ionic surfactants such as ethers of fatty alcohols are mostly commonly used in pharmaceuticals for solubilization of hydrophobic drugs in aqueous media as self-assembly vehicles for oral and transdermal drug delivery and as agents to improve drug absorption and penetration. Gemini surfactants are effective potential transfection agents for non-viral gene therapy. Cationic surfactants have two important properties. They are easily absorbed at solid liquid interfaces and can interact with the cellular membranes of microorganisms. Compounds of this type, like cationic surfactants, behave as good antimicrobial agents, and for many years, they have been used as disinfectants in institutional care products and in the food industry. The antibacterial, antifungal, and antiviral activities make surfactants the relevant molecules for applications in combating many diseases as real agents. Due to the rapid worldwide emergence of resistant microorganisms, the development of new antimicrobial compounds with different modes of action is really of matter of importance. Succeeding generations of anionic, cationic, non-ionic, and Gemini surfactants have demonstrated increased efficiency in terms of kill rate and requirement of lower concentration, lower toxicity, and better eco-acceptability. Sodium cocoyl isothionate, sodium lauryl ether sulfate, cocoa amidopropyl betaine, sulfosuccinate, and alkyl polyglucosides are probably the current mild care surfactant in terms of anionic and amphoterics, while the polymeric cationic surfactants are the latest generation surfactants in terms of antimicrobial activity. The global surfactant market size was valued at US dollar 38 to 41 billion in 2019, and now is projected to reach US dollar 60 billion by 2027, which gives a increase of 5 to 6% from 2020 to 2027. There are many major industrial players in the market, including BASF, Croda, Clariant, Stephen, Huntsman, Evonik, then Galaxy, Dow, uh, and Aarti Industries likewise. The key players of the global pharmaceutical surfactants market include ExxonMobil, Evonik, Croda, BASF, then Mitsubishi, and many others. The theme of seminar is to provide comprehensive deliberations on the systematic assessment of the microbicidal, antiviral, and contraceptive potential of cationic, anionic, deuterionic, and non-anionic surfactants and their utilizations in the formulations of home care and institutional care, sanitizing products, consumer safety and regulatory aspects, and global marketing opportunities and future trends. On December 4 last week, we had 4 presentations. After opening remarks by webinar chairman, Mr. U. Shekhar, Dr. Renuka, in her talk, highlighted the marketing claims, authenticity, and technical reality of such claims in reference to sanitizing products in home and personal care sectors. A detailed outline of antiviral activity, efficacy, and the corresponding applications of fat-based surfactant have been presented by the second speaker. Dr. Rao, with due supporting examples, elaborated the role of innovations in consumer products and role of surfactants in health and hygiene. Similarly, we have one more presentation, which was based on research survey with critical analysis on consumer behavior during pandemic. Today, we have 5 presentations scheduled. I expect all the participants to enjoy the presentations throughout the session. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. I would now request our next speaker, Dr. Bala Subramaniam, Director, Sri Ramu Specialities. He is PhD from IIT Madras, PhD in Organic Chemistry. He is a scientific advisor to Government of India, Ministry of Science and Technology. Sir is, since being an advisor, he has a very good command over the regulatory aspects of surfactants. And as sir said rightly, that we are using the surfactants in a big way today in the industry, and we are using it in homes. The safety, consumer safety is of utmost importance, and hence comes the regulatory aspects in it. So I would request our our first speaker, today's first speaker, Dr. Bala Subramaniam, Director, Sri Ramu Specialty Surfactant Private Limited, to take us through the consumer safety and regulatory aspect of surfactants used in personal and home care. On to you, sir.
Okay, madam. Thank you, madam. Good evening to all of you. My speech, is it audible to you?
Yes,
Can
sir.
I proceed?
Yes, sir, please.
Okay. Okay. The title of the talk today is Consumer Safety and the Regulatory Aspects of Surfactants used in personal and home care products. I am at present a director for the Sri Ramu Specialty Surfactant Private Limited, and the company is situated in Puducherry.
Sir, your presentation is not seen. Can you just, sorry to interrupt.
It's not visible, madam?
No, sir. Can you just start your presentation, please?
Okay, I will. Is it all right, madam? Can you are able to see that?
No, sir. Please.
One second.
Screen.
One second. Just a minute, madam. I will ask someone to help me. Prabha? Prabha?
Regulations are really, it's a tough thing, and especially in surfactants where we are into. So
Madam, one sec, madam. I
yes,
am trying to.
sir.
Share continue. Share screen.
Madam, you are able to see now, madam? Hello?
Yes, sir, we can see it now.
Okay, so shall I proceed, madam?
Yes, sir, please.
Okay, thank you, madam. Okay. See, the title of my talk today is Consumer Safety and Regulatory Aspects of Surfactants used in personal and home care products. At present, I am representing a company named Sri Ramu Specialty Surfactants Private Limited, Puducherry. See, we have to talk about consumer safety in all the consumer products. The reason is consumer is a king. King needs protection in terms of health. That is why in our country, in the year 1986, Consumer Protection Act came into place. See, the consumer safety is all the more important on the consumer products because it has got a potential to cause harm to the human health. So there has to be adequate safety controls to be put into place by monitoring the product market. These surfactants, upon usage, it has got a direct contact with humans. When the surfactants are used in personal and home care formulations, it has got a direct contact with the consumer, and that is going to directly affect the consumer's health. That is why we have to be very careful when we talk about surfactant safety. The following are the major consumer products which is being used in huge volumes. The surfactants, it goes into detergents, dishwashing agents, cleaning agents, personal care products. And the high volume surfactants are the four. There are other surfactants which are also being used, but the major volume are one is alcohol sulfate, alcohol ethoxysulfate, linear alkyl benzene sulfonate, and the long chain alcohol. See, when we talk about this linear alkyl benzene sulfate, this is the surfactant which is used in huge volume in our country, in also the other countries. And this one is the one which is being discussed in length in terms of biodegradability, human safety, and other aspects. And finally, it has come out clean when we talk about when we compare with other surfactants. See, the surfactants manufacturers should ensure to the consumer in terms of safety that the surfactants do not present toxicity hazard to the consumers, as well as they do not present an environmental hazard after use when the surfactants are discharged by the consumer into the environment. Now the question comes, see, a lot of debate, a lot of discussion went on the question of are surfactants harmful. Now we should find out an answer whether they are really harmful or harmless. The modern life detergents are surfactants. Detergent formulation is incomplete without surfactant, that is the nucleus. And there is a perception that long-term use can cause skin irritation. And when they accumulate in the human body, it is difficult to degrade. It remains inside the body. So the surfactants damage the enzyme activity. They disrupt the body's physiological action. And some of the surfactants and also the secondary surfactants which goes into the detergent formulations are carcinogens. Mutagens are tumor-causing agents, in short, cancer-causing chemicals. So we have to get an answer for all these questions. Similarly, when we talk about the safety to environment, we have to talk about the term called biodegradation. When you talk about biodegradation, there are two terms. One is called primary biodegradation. The other one is called ultimate biodegradation. What is primary biodegradation? See, upon usage, once the chemical identity is lost, it is primary biodegradation. That itself is sufficient to say that it is safe for the humans. Then next comes ultimate biodegradation. Ultimate biodegradation in which the surfactants upon usage should completely get converted into carbon dioxide, mineral salt, and water. So there were a lot of competing claims that one is ultimately biodegradable, the other one is primarily biodegradable. It is not so. In fact, when I mentioned about this linear alkyl benzene sulfonate, a lot of studies were conducted by the manufacturers, users, and the detergent formulators and others. Finally, it has been proved that the linear alkyl benzene sulfonate is as good as the other completely biodegradable surfactants. And see, nowadays there is a term called environmental sustainability commitment. When I traveled in Japan, they talk about only sustainability, not the other term. Sustainability is the term which is being talked much in the Japanese industries. And the sustainability commitment says that one should market only the products to be safe for humans and the environment. This is by carefully considering the potential health and environmental effects at all the stages of a product when it comes from the factory. Number one, production, transportation, use and disposal. It is not only manufacturing, it is not only transportation. After use and after disposal, the product has to be environmentally sustainable. It should not give any harm to the environment. And there are different legislative aspects that is already put in place in different regions of the world on personal and home care products, and they are regulated in terms of their impact on human health and environment. The European Commission directly demands that these products be safe for human health under normal and foreseeable conditions. And there is the EC Commission demands that the labeling requirements are also very stringent. In the product label, the name of the manufacturer or the importer should be mentioned first, so that if at all any issue comes, they can be directly contacted for clarification and action. The shelf life also has to be mentioned, and conditions of use, marketing claims, function of the product, and each ingredient which goes into the formulation. Substances banned for use, if any, has already been used. Permitted colorants and preservatives. And the surfactant manufacturers, they should be ready to undergo a safety assessment by the officials. And they should keep ready, accessible to official control bodies when they visit their factories. Now, they talk about the new regulations called REACH. Registration, evaluation, and authorization of chemicals that are being used in the formulation and surfactants manufacturer. So when each chemical goes into the surfactants, it should meet all these requirements. When it was introduced, a lot of debate went on in the European countries. There were pros and cons. Finally, it has been fully implemented, and it has been percolated and already put in place. Now this is being talked about in our country, and soon this will come into use by all the surfactant manufacturers. And when we talk about the toxicology, I already raised questions that all surfactants are found. Study in detail about the physicochemical properties of these surfactants and their capacity to interact with biological membranes, proteins, and enzymes. In fact, Dr. Swisher, in the early 1968 itself, he has done a detailed calculation. He has taken that 0.323 milligram per person was calculated for consumption by each human being. And finally, he has come out that no indications of systematic, chronic, or irreversible damage was found with respect to the human beings. And also due to the low rate of percutaneous absorption exposure through skin can be neglected because nothing happened to the skin after use. And comparison of the highly consumption with lower tolerable dosing regarded as harmless. Here I want to explain for that. See, actually, the total consumption is very high when compared to the maximum tolerable dosing. So upon usage of the maximum consumption, the tolerable dosage was negligible. So he has come to a conclusion that the use of surfactant does not pose a health risk for humans. And the risk assessment. See, these surfactants are used in very high volumes and they are widely released to the aquatic environment. And till date, lot of studies was put in place by the Environmental Protection Agency from the USA and the Organization for Economic about the
Thank, thank you. Thank you so much. So now we go ahead with our second speaker, wherein we all know the intense use of hard surface sanitizers being done today wherever we go, in whichever place, right from malls to our houses to the lobbies of our buildings, everywhere we are looking at sanitization being conducted for today for our safety, wherein active chlorine is being used, where hard surface sanitizers are being used, so which are used for killing the microorganisms, the germs. But are they really killing? Are they safe? Let's look into this aspect of with our next speaker, Professor Dr. Sunil Bhagwat, Dean of Academic Program at the Institute of Chemical Technology. Professor Bhagwat has 34 years of experience, has 10 patents, and several awards and publications to his credit. I would now request Dr. Bhagwat to take us through our role of surfactants in hand and surface sanitization and personal and home care. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Renuka. And very good afternoon to everybody. And
Great, sir. Thanks. Okay.
very good afternoon to everybody. I hope you can see my screen. Dr. Renuka, can you confirm if you are seeing my screen?
Yes, sir. I am able to see your screen.
It's
Good afternoon to everybody. I'm going to talk about hard surface sanitization, and pardon me if I'm going to start like a teacher, I'm going to start with the basics. When you talk about the world of microbes, it includes bacteria, which are unicellular. They can have different shapes like rods, spheres, curved shapes, and so on. And they lack a nucleus. They are called prokaryotic. Fungi, on the other hand, are multicellular. They are eukaryotic. They have a nucleus. Viruses are not even cells. They are non-cellular. They are not even considered living organisms. They consist only of a nucleic acid core, which is surrounded by a protein coat, and some of them enveloped with a lipid membrane. And these can infest prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells and cause diseases. The structure of a bacterium is determined primarily with a Gram stain. Hans Christian Gram found a stain by which we can determine what is the outer layer of that bacterium. If you have a thick protein layer and only a very thin mucus-like layer at the outside, then it is called a gram-positive bacteria. And gram-negative bacteria have a very thin peptidoglycan layer here and a lipid membrane protecting it at the outermost. And the gram stains positive like this with purple, gram-negative will end up becoming a pink one. It's common terminology as far as microbiologists are concerned, but I thought I would stress that here. The gram positive, once again, they do not have an outer lipid layer. Gram negative, the outermost lipid layer is what gives them their major protection, and these are actually therefore harder to kill. The gram positive can be targeted by antibiotics, but the gram negative are not very easily targeted by antibiotics, and it's primarily because of the lipid membrane. Viruses, many of them are pathogens. We know many names: HIV, hepatitis, Ebola, and of course, the current coronavirus. Many of them, they are structures which are enveloped inside a lipid membrane. Now, the RNA is there, and there is a lipid bilayer which is around them, almost like a cell wall, but it is not really a cell wall because it is not even a cell. And that lipid membrane is what makes them protected. Now, what are methods with which we can tackle them? The antibacterial methods. We can apply heat. In some cases, even apply cold. We can apply UV radiation, and we can apply chemical agents. These are methods which are not effective in treating the disease, but they are effective in probably preventing contamination through surfaces and so on. Our stress today is about chemical reagents such as alcohol, oxidizing agents, quaternary ammoniums, surfactants. So mainly about surfactants and the active chlorine oxidizing agents. Alcohols disrupt the bilayer and they remove themselves by evaporation post-application for sanitization. Oxidizing agents like hydrogen peroxide oxidize the cellular components, and once the oxidation is done, it converts itself to water. Active chlorine compounds like hypochlorite, they are very strong oxidizing agents, and in the hypochlorous acid form, they are much more active than the hypochlorite ion form, and they leave a residue in the form of sodium chloride. Surfactants are, actually speaking, not typically germicidal. They are very mildly germicidal. In fact, this was the earliest finding by Louis Pasteur that soaps will remove bacteria, but they work by removal, degerming rather than killing those germs. Quaternary ammonium compounds, which include some surfactants which are quaternary ammonium, these have very special property in that they are ready to kill almost everything. There are very few exceptions that don't get killed by a quaternary ammonium. Aldehydes are also very patent, especially glyceraldehyde, but our focus today is more about surfactants and the oxidizing agents, active chlorine. In terms of contamination, from one infected person to another, there are three basic routes possible. One directly airborne, one is through direct contact like a handshake, third is via a contaminated surface which somebody can touch by hand and therefore the healthy person will get infected. It is this route that we are talking about for hard surface sanitization. And this is measured in terms of how much is the virus strength on that contaminated surface, and its reduction is measured as a log reduction. 100-fold reduction is 2 log, 1000-fold reduction is 3 log, so 99.9% removal. We talk in terms of minimum inhibition concentration for suspension or zone of inhibition. But what is also important is the damage it can cause to the substrate, especially if it is skin or even to hard surfaces. And as we heard just now, environmental toxicity is also important. 3 ways of application: spray, wipes, and dips. Chemical toxicity here, I am just giving an example. Just as I said, quaternary ammoniums are extremely active and they are very effective, but it also means they can cause damage to some extent to even human body. Of course, it depends on concentration. I have shown over here what all body parts can get affected by quaternary ammonium compounds here. Oxidizing agents, they even attack the substrates which they are trying to sanitize, especially metals will get oxidized with oxidizing agents and they can corrode. Now let's see how surfactants work with these enveloped viruses and gram-negative bacteria. Surfactants have structure very similar to the lipid-forming membrane itself. So therefore, the surfactant can participate and join in the lipid layer itself. And as it is shown over here, in that enveloped virus or the bacterium where outer lipid membrane is there, this surfactant molecule gets adsorbed, starts becoming a part of that membrane, and effectively works as a crowbar, separating out that membrane and opening up the internals to the external, and thereby killing the bacteria or by making the virus inactive. We don't use the word killing in terms of virus, but it becomes inactive. And this was about non-quaternary ammonium surfactants. Hypochlorous and hypochlorite are oxidizing agents, which we have to remember that normally they will come as hypochlorite ion, and that salt can ionize as Na plus and OCl minus. HOCl is the hypochlorous acid, which is another form of NaOCl, and it will also ionize as H plus and OCl minus. Now, presence of H plus pushes this equilibrium to the left. And this is expressed in terms of the Ka value, which is the ratio of H plus ion concentration multiplied by this ion divided by the HOCl. And which means the HOCl upon OCl minus ion ratio is directly equal to the H plus ion upon Ka value, which is 10 raised to negative pH plus pKa value. And pKa value of hypochlorous acid is 7.52, which means at a pH of 7.5, half the total hypochlorite is in free acid form and other half is in the ionic form. And HOCl is far, far more active than the OCl minus form. It's the HOCl which oxidizes something and becomes HCl, not the NaOCl or calcium hypochlorite. Now, if you look at how much of material of NaOCl will be in HOCl form depends on pH, and here I have drawn a representative graph which shows that 7.5 pH is where half of it will be in HOCl, half of it will be in OCl minus form. So lower the pH, higher is the oxidizing ability of my hypochlorite based oxidizing agent, and of course therefore the antimicrobial activity. However, the HOCl, which is highly oxidizing, it also has another property that it keeps oxidizing whatever is around it and therefore decays. And there is a certain shelf life that you are going to have for HOCl, that it will decay within days. So HOCl is very unstable and therefore active. Hypochlorite is much more stable, but far less active. So this is the dilemma that we are going to have while formulating with hypochlorite. And now I'm going to show some results which were for recent results for coronaviruses. So at first, coronaviruses which are SARS-CoV-2 like coronaviruses, you can see on steel, aluminum, paper, plastic, rubbers of different kind, they last anywhere from 48 hours to few days. That means these periods, if somebody else touches that surface, it can transfer that virus to that person's hand and the person can get infected. But all these are surrogates which are similar to coronavirus. These are studies carried over the last couple of decades. SARS-CoV-2 is something which came more recently. Something which has been definitely permitted as a surrogate for studies are these specific viruses. And you can see on aluminum, metals, PVC, all of them, they last for several days. So, and that is why we need to sanitize surfaces which have been touched by possibly infected people. And you can see on a copper surface, the time for decay is 4 hours, but on polypropylene, it is fairly high. And this is specifically of SARS-CoV-2 now. Very few results of SARS-CoV-2 are available, and which is why I first showed the surrogates. Now looking at sanitizing agents, ethanol, if it is up to 70-80%, in less than a minute, it will have log reduction 4 or 5-fold. Same is true about isopropanol. But benzalkonium chloride, which is a quat compound, on the other hand, has mixed results. At 0.05%, we get in 10 minutes more than 3 log reduction. However, there was one solitary study which studied at 0.2%. This was more than 20 years ago on some human coronavirus only. But there they did not find any reduction. I wouldn't trust this result really because it was not replicated later on, and we find some activity at lower concentrations. So two different viruses, it is still active, but at lower concentrations, 001 and 002, you can see even after 3 days, it is only 3 log reduction. That means it requires 3 days to reach 3 log reduction. So 0.05% concentration is fine. 10 minutes, it will inactivate a virus. Similarly, about didecyl, this also a quaternary ammonium compound. When you look at hypochlorite, not only at 0.2%, it will work in 30 seconds, 0.01% in 10 minutes, 0.001% also in 10 minutes. But you can see these last two, the log reduction numbers are 1 or 0.3, meaning only about 10-fold reduction. If you want a reduction of 3 plus, that means 1000-fold plus, you have to look at 0.2% concentration. Peroxide 0.5%, it is 1 minute more than 4 log reduction, but the costs are different. And povidone iodine is something specifically which has been found for SARS-CoV-2 very recently, working on safe on skin as well, but my topic is more about hard surfaces. So the biocidal agents, benzalkonium chloride, once again 0.04% on the stainless steel, 1 minute deactivation to little less than 3 log reduction. Peroxide 4 to 5 log reduction, and surfactants will require much higher concentration. Please remember that surfactants will work to kill a bacterium or a virus inactivation, but at a much higher concentration, which we use for hand wash. But if you are spraying it on a hard surface at that concentration, it will be very, very ineffective. It will not work for inactivation or sanitization of the surface as we want. Thank you for your attention. This is what was my comparison for surfactant versus hypochlorite and HOCl, and the precautionary word that you need to be careful about pH. Thank you for your attention. Over to you, Dr. Renuka.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. It was really like the way a teacher teaches is something which we understand very well, why we are always surrounded with all of sanitizers and people cleaning and all the time the lobbies and all. Thank you for making it so simple for us in understanding. I would request all the delegates to message question in the chat box, which will help us to take these questions during the question answer sessions. We would now shift upon our third speaker, what Professor Bhagwat explained us was about microorganisms. So microorganisms, be it transient or residential, will always pose some harm when they increase in number. So lot of surfactants are known to kill these microorganisms are as well, which we just saw in the earlier presentation. But in today's world, where we are talking about sustainability, biosurfactants are also very well known. So let's look at antimicrobial properties of biosurfactants through the lens and perspective of our third speaker, Dr. Nirmal Koshti, Executive Director, Innovation Process at Galaxy Surfactants, a PhD in organic chemistry with 70 international patents. And Dr. Koshti is presently in US. And good morning, Dr. Koshti. I would now request you to take over from here and take us through the aspect of the antimicrobial biosurfactants.
Hey, thank you, Renuka, and good evening and good afternoon, everybody.
Yes, sir.
Let me share my screen. Yeah, my screen is visible, right?
Sir, it's visible.
Okay, so thank you very much, and good afternoon, everybody. So, yeah, just now we heard from Professor Bhagwat that COVID virus remains infectious on surfaces of inanimate objects for several hours. And hence, we rely heavily on lower alcohols, hypochlorite solution, and surfactants for this disinfection and sanitization. So when it comes to the topical applications where we are physically removing virus from the surfaces or even destroying it, conventional surfactants, including regular soap solution, can work. Of course, all the previous speakers also mentioned the other surfactants, anionic surfactants, even better, as Dr. Bhagwat mentioned, cationic surfactant like benzalkonium chloride. So all these surfactants work very well, and so do the biosurfactants. So let's quickly take a look at the field of biosurfactants. Now, all of us are aware that biosurfactants are manufactured using fermentation technology, using live microbes. So microbes are fed with carbon source and nitrogen source. And the biosurfactants are the metabolites of these microbes. The metabolites gets excreted and subsequently they are isolated from the biomass. So you can see that this process is a kind of a green chemistry. The feedstocks come from the renewable source and your reactors are microbes. So, and I think another fascinating aspect about this fermentation technology is the immense scope that it offers for tailor making your outcome. You have the liberty of changing the carbon source, change the vegetable oils, change the carbohydrates, complex carbohydrates, simple sugars, and even you can change the microbes, you can change the genus, you can change the species, and one can even go for genetically modified bacterium to basically influence the outcome of your fermentation technology. And we are also very fortunate to see that some of the biosurfactants that are already there in the market, they are biodegradable and of low cytotoxicity compared to their conventional analogs. So all these factors like green chemistry of the fermentation and biodegradability, low cytotoxicity, so everything basically is good for long-term sustainability of the planet actually. So all these factors weigh in very heavily in favor of biosurfactants to be the next alternatives to conventional surfactants. So today we are going to see a couple of classes of biosurfactants, namely lipopeptides and glycolipids. So here is the first example of lipopeptide class. The surfactant is surfactine, available commercially as a sodium salt, manufactured by a Japanese company called Kanika Corporation. It was reported way back in 1968. Manufactured using this gram-positive bacterium, Bacillus subtilis. And if you can see the structure, the lipid portion, the fatty acid portion is actually coupled to amino acids. The amino acids are arranging cyclic form. So there are 7 amino acids. So this is cyclic lipopeptide. And this peptide is the basically hydrophilic group of the surfactant. And you have this long alkyl chain hanging out. And this surfactant is commercially available. It's being used by personal care industry. And it has a very good antibacterial as well as antiviral properties. See, the next example I have chosen is sophorolipids. Some people have already heard about it. Again, this is glycopeptide. So that means you have 2 parts, sugar and lipid. So sugar part, you can actually see the sugar part is sophorose. The disaccharide you can see on the structure, 2 chair-like structures are connected to each other. And then the lipid portion, which is either in the free carboxylic acid form or in this lactonic form. So the way, commercially this is produced using Candida bombicola. That's the yeast, which is non-pathogenic to human. And again, just like surfactant, this sophorolipids were also reported way back in 1961. So you can see that biosurfactants have been around for like several decades. Again, this is commercially available. It's being used by personal care industry and home care industry. And this one is effective against bacteria as well as virus. Next example is rhamnolipids, again glycolipids. So sugar part is rhamnose and the lipid part is again hydroxy fatty acid, 3-hydroxy fatty acid. So the way it is produced commercially using Pseudomonas aeruginosa, which is again gram-negative pathogenic bacterium. You get a mixture of several species where you can have 1 sugar unit and 1 lipid unit, or sometimes you can have 2 sugar units, 2 lipid units. So you get a complex mixture. That's how the bacterium manufactures. And this one is also commercially available, used by home care industry and personal care industry. And it also exhibits good antifungal and antibacterial properties. The third example is this manosyl erythritol lipid, MELs, they call it. You can actually see the structure here. Sugar part is mannose, and then the lipid portion is attached through an ester linkage. And on the carbon 1, you have this erythritol unit. So this is again commercially produced using plant yeast, which is not pathogenic to human, of the genus Pseudozyma. Several other species can be used. This is commercially available, and personal care industry is using this particular biosurfactant. So now, okay, now this particular slide will give you an idea about the frenetic activity in terms of globally patenting. So you can see last 5 years, hectic activity for sophorolipids, almost like 300 to 400 patents were filed every year by the leading countries like China, US, Korea, Japan, Western Europe, particularly Germany. So same trend you can actually see with the rhamnolipids, again, hectic patenting activity. And if you can see the bottom line, that says that in 2015, we had 9 producers of biosurfactants, and in 2020 we have 25 plus manufacturers which offer biosurfactants commercially. Here are some examples of the products using biosurfactants in the market. Now these products are from Saraya, which is a Japanese company, quite a big name in biosurfactants. They make their own biosurfactants and using their finished products. So you can actually see body wash, laundry powder, laundry softener, laundry liquid, and you can actually see the mention of sophorolipids and biosurfactant on the label. Some more examples from Saraya: bathroom cleaner, toilet cleaner, dishwasher gel, kitchen cleaner. This dishwasher gel is actually directed towards washing the baby dishes. So these are also from Saraya Home Care. Some examples from the big guys using biosurfactants. The first one is eCover. Again, this is a Belgium giant in biosurfactants. They make their own biosurfactants and using their finished products. So this is the hard surface cleanser from eCover. The middle one, Quicks, is from Unilever. They use rhamnolipids. And the third one is Cydoline from Henkel, and they use sophorlipids. Some examples from the personal care world, the Leave-On products using sophorlipids, Leave-On products and the rinse-off products from the Mintel search. You can see some examples here using the manosyl erythritol lipids. Again, Toyobo is the Japanese company which use fermentation technology, their patented technology. Now, this slide is basically to give you a quick idea about the structural difference between the conventional surfactants and the biosurfactants. Just note that the big hydrophilic head group size, the bulky size of the biosurfactant, which is basically nothing but sugar. This particular thing, Dr. Bhagwat already spoke about it, that every surfactant has a potential to be antibacterial. And again, why? Again, if you see the cell wall structure of the bacterium, you can see the outer membrane and the cell membrane. Both membranes are actually made up of the amphiphils, phospholipids arranged in bilayers. So every surfactant has a chance to basically fuse with the membrane and bridge the membrane and compromise the integrity and just destroy the bacterium. Same thing happens with the enveloped virus. Again, surfactants can bridge the lipid layer in case of envelope viruses, and again interact with the proteins and inflict further damage by denaturing protein. So to conclude, I would definitely say the salient features of the biosurfactants. We'd already talked about the biodegradability, low cytotoxicity, green synthesis, fermentation. Everything is good for the sustainability aspect. And then you have very good antiviral properties. Active against almost all types of viruses, human, plant, animal. Then you have this antibacterial properties, particularly anti-biofilm properties of interest here, where one encounters situations with antibiotics-resistant bacteria in hospital-acquired infections. Biosurfactants are also being looked into this drug delivery aspect through liposomal or vesicular delivery. And again, topical applications we already saw, but then in systemic application where in case of this acute respiratory distress syndrome, where the alveoli of the lungs lose their function and they collapse and the patient finds difficulty in breathing. So surfactants can be administered through an aerosol-like preparation. So that this is also being looked into. And finally, now that the biosurfactants are commercially available in metric ton quantities, so one can actually use them as a building block to basically create derivatives which could have enhanced activity. And fortunately, some of the biosurfactants have been found to be anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, and anti-aging. So that's a good news for skincare. So I think with this, I stop here. So I think the bottom line I would say is, I would say biosurfactants have arrived. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. It's really biosurfactants have arrived, and with the well-being concept in the industry, they are the next big thing in the industry globally as well, not only in India, but in the global market. Thank you so much. So we now have to take us through the trends. When we are talking about the current market and the future market, let's look at the trends which are there currently and will be in the future in the surfactant industry. So since we know that global surfactant market is projected to reach about $60 billion by 2026, and this growth is going to be consistent with the increasing demands of consumer, we should know the trends that will be there in the industry. To take us through the trends, we have Dr. Gharat, who is heading the research and new product development department at Godrej Industries. He has over 25 years of experience in agrochemical, pharma, API, specialty chemicals, and oleo businesses. He has a very good industrial network and academic connect, and has worked on several new product development. I would now request Dr. Gharat to take us through the new trends which will be there in the market.
Thank you, Dr. Renuka.
Thank you, sir.
So I will load my presentation.
Yes, sir, please.
So, thank you. Is the screen visible, Dr.
Yes,
Renuka?
sir. Yes, sir. It's visible.
So, thank you, Otai, for inviting me. And I think Professor Sunil Bhagwat and Dr. Kosti has made my job a bit easier because both are my favorite topics. So, I'll take you through the presentation in this flow, basically. And these are some of the basic terminologies in the cleansing and disinfection. You can say cleansing refers to the removal of dirt and dust from surfaces. Disinfection is 100% killing of specified germs, while antibacterial hand washes, they do cleansing plus disinfection both. And sanitization is basically reduction of the specified germs. So if we see different surfaces which can transmit the germs and spread the diseases, the hand is 80% responsible for infectious disease spread. And therefore, this cleaning of hands is the most important part. I think from ages, people are using surfactants in terms of soaps. So these surfactants which lift soils from the surfaces, they work in concert with the antimicrobial agents and activities, and therefore they are part of this disinfection and sterilization. I think as explained by Dr. Bala, Professor Sunil Bhagwat, the role of surfactants in antibacterial and cleaning is very simple. Because of their spreading and interfacial properties, they act as detergent, emulsifier, and dispersing agent, and they remove the pathogens from the surfaces. They never kill it. And also they have the ability to rupture the protein and lipid membranes, and that's how they get this antimicrobial character, pretty well explained by all the speakers. But again, we know there are certain issues. Okay, the kill rate is slow, then the biodegradation is less. They are highly toxic to some of the aquatic organisms. They use majorly non-renewable resources for their production. And then, of course, issues like 1,4-dioxane and harshness to skin. This I'm talking mainly about the surfactants which are commonly used in home and personal care. So I think how the surfactants work as antimicrobials was explained by previous speakers, as well as this paper by Nancy Falk is it's a very good paper to understand the basics. So I'm not going to detail it again. There are 4 types, as everybody know, and anionics are the majorly used, which contains the labs, SLES, SLS, AOS, and almost 50% of the usage is of anionics. They give high foam and dirt removal properties and commonly used in all the regular formulations which we use day to day. Cationics, as Professor Sunil explained, it is very powerful antimicrobial. It helps in conditioning properties. So CTAC, BTAC, and benzalkonium chloride are very common kind of cationic surfactants. And the latest are the multiple generation of quartz which are coming. Then non-ionics, mainly the fatty alcohol, ethoxylate, fatty esters, and then these glycolipids, which was explained just now. So they are good in high salinity and hard water kind of applications, and cosmetic and personal care applications like shampoos and bath showers, etc. Basically, if you see, the non-ionics work better in combinations like esters and glycolipids. They can improve the micro efficacy. So these are mainly used in combinations. Amphoterics like betanes and amine oxides are again used big way in home care, basically floor washing and all, and also used in dermatological properties, which basically are good for the lesser skin irritation. So the optimum combinations from hydrophobicity and formulation character point give you the better character to the formulation in terms of surfactancy as well as the micro efficacy properties. I think we have seen these numbers again. The surfactant current market is almost 38 to 40 billion and expected to go to 60 at a CAGR of almost 5 to 6%. What is the Indian scenario? The Indian growth drivers of surfactant market are, of course, it was pushed first time when PM Modi started this Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. Then, of course, our economy is growing. So there's a lot of young population which is having a very good disposable income. and that's improving the cleanliness awareness and consumerism. So that is also responsible for the increase in this market. And then recently, the COVID-19 has created the deep demand. I think Dr. Renuka had said that the hand cleaning formulations, the market has gone almost by 50%. So Indian market growth rate is almost more than double of the world growth market, 12 to 13%. These are some of the major surfactants still used in India, which are basically the harsher or the basic surfactants. LABS is the 75% of the total consumption still. You can see the major end uses also. So what is the trend basically in developing countries? Okay, I think many of us will agree that 20 years back, the use of basic soaps was also less. So we are a country where now we are going from no use of soaps and cleaning things to we have started using the things. So that is a basic product usage. Then there is urban population in India which has better income now. Okay, they are going for little better actives or little better claim products, but still the industry or the products in developing countries are price sensitive, we can say. While if you see the developed countries, basically they are beyond this. So they are now going more for the environmental or sustainability issues. They are going for greener, milder or safer products. And then sometimes they can also check based on the different properties offered by different surfactants in this regime. So especially the developed countries like US, Europe and Japan, Korea are in this regime, and they mainly are sold on sustainability and mildness. So the key drivers for future are now, we can say that first, I think these are explained well by Dr. Bala, environmental requirements and need. Okay, so there is a rising environmental and sustainability concern all over the world. So slowly it's bound to come in India also. Depleting petrochemical sources, then the customer requirements, as I explained, the consumer awareness is increasing about health effects, about the harshness, and then increased purchasing power of the consumers, even in the developing countries. Resource availability is very good. Okay, there is ample supply of renewable oleo sources, which is a sustainable resource, we can say. Then enough research efforts and enough product differentiations are available, which can offer us milder, safer and green options. So the trend is going to be cleaning with responsibility, and emergence of gentle formulations, safer ingredients are key factors which could be seen in the future. So if you really see the future trend, I can explain or I can describe it like future will be belonging to the GEMS. Okay, so GEMS is what? G is good and green, E is economical and efficient, and M is milder and multifunctional. What we can target right now, okay, we know that India, definitely the cheaper products or the anionics are going to play a major role till a long time. But then definitely industry can help by going towards the green. Okay, so we can have as green as possible products, which are good for consumers, good for environment. We can have economical and efficient products. Unless we make the green economical or cheaper, it's not going to get the market from the developing countries. So we should try and make it economical and efficient. Because of their efficacy, less could be used, and that will also help in the final pricing. It should be milder for consumers and multifunctional, like this biosurfactants explained by Dr. Kosti are multifunctional. But apart from that, also we can make some efforts to make the products multifunctional. So fortunately, in a company like Godrej, there are a lot of companies, okay, who have this good oleo base. So oleo based green products we can use to replace the existing non-green kind of ingredient, and we now can say with confidence that we can replace a lot of mineral oil based products used in personal care cosmetics, lubricants, preservatives, agri-emulsifiers, as well as food and pharma. To start with, basically, we cannot suppose get the green thing, then at least we should go for the surfactant concentrates. So these help in terms of less inventory and less logistics cost, which ultimately can contribute to the carbon footprint. Then of course, effective we can go for long chain based ingredients which are very effective in personal care and cosmetics in terms of sensorial. They give also the better performance, the usage levels could be reduced, and sometime you can have components or ingredients design which could replace 2-3 other regular ingredients. Sulfate free concepts are also coming, and they are very effective and milder. And multifunctional, what I mean by multifunctional is there could be a multi-purpose product which could replace a group of component in a formulation. It is an existing formulation, but there are certain products which could be used in multiple industries, multiple applications like feed, food, pharma. Okay, so this multifunctionality is possible in all these oleo-based compounds, especially the surfactant categories. And I think Godrej, we are using it a bit right now. So emerging trends, and as you heard earlier, the biosurfactants are the emerging trend. Okay, why? Because they are gentle on screen, there is strong cleansing effect, it possesses antimicrobial character, sometimes standalone, sometimes as a co-surfactant, it boosts the antimicrobial properties. It has an efficacy in the bigger pH and salinity range. Then, of course, the biodegradability, because they are produced from the renewable and sustainable raw materials. They are essentially non-toxic for human as well as other organisms. We have checked a few things on aquatic and the other organisms, and they are multifunctional and multifaculty. So sophrolipid, as you have heard, and we are in big way in sophrolipids now. Okay, we are already done a lot of application studies and manufacturing kind of activities. So basically, I think James are going to be the future, and at Godrej, we are keen and conscious about environmental and social well-being. So I think these are the summary points which each of us can follow. Use of as green as possible raw materials in ingredient manufacturing, use of as green as possible ingredients in applications, use of surfactant concentrates in the home and hygiene care, and use of milder and multifunctional ingredients. I think coming years definitely will bring this, and industry has to follow that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Rightly put in that responsible cleaning with through gems is going to be the future. So thank you so much for this
Thank
talk.
you. Thank you.
And we go ahead with us with from here with acknowledging our second sponsor, the Fair Labs. So I would request, yes. Thank you. Thank you. So we have with us our next speaker, Dr. Kaushik Buzumdar. Dr. Kaushik, he is a Senior Vice President, Fair Labs, and he has his PhD in chemistry and has vast experience in the field of antimicrobial polymers, cholesterol-based lipids, peptides, detergents, and so. So I request Dr. Kaushik Mukherjee to speak on the role of surfactants in hand and surface sanitization in personal and home care segments. Over to you, Dr. Kaushik.
Thank you, ma'am, for the kind introduction. Can you see my slides, ma'am?
Yes, sir, we can.
Okay. So, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you. So, I will give a brief perspective on the role and use of surfactants in home and personal care. Actually, all my previous speakers actually touched upon a lot of the things that I have in this slide. So it's more of a summary, it seems. So just now everybody talked that basically in the surfactant market, from if you look, it will have almost a growth of around 4.5 to 5%. And if we look the surfactant markets by region, we can see there's a lot of activity in India and the Asia Pacific region, right? So it's a good news for us. Then if we look at the surfactants market volume percentage, it's a little old data from 2018, but anionic surfactants and non-anionic surfactants lead the market. And then if you look at the personal care industry, it's actually growing. If you look from 2015 to 2020. So now if we look at the surfactant types that are used in personal and home care, so we have the conventional surfactants, which are our anionic, non-ionic, cationic, and fructaric, and also the siloxanes kind of surfactants, the non-carbon one. And then because of the current sustainability and for green and clean, so there are these natural surfactants. And as our previous speakers already talked about these biosurfactants, which have microbial origin. They are the glycolipids, the lipopeptides, the mannose-oil erythritol lipids. And then there are also the surfactants, which are based on natural polar head groups like the sugars and the carbohydrates. So they are the alkyl polyglucosides. This is a very commonly used surfactant these days in cosmetics. And you have the alkyl glucamides, the sugar esters, and also you have the sorbitan esters, and they are ethoxylated derivatives, right? And then also these days, we also have the amino acid head group containing surfactants. Now, if we look at what is the role of surfactants specifically, so every home care or personal care material products have these surfactants, polymers, and benefit agents, right? But surfactant is basically the backbone of any of these products. So if you look at home care, it's mostly soil removal, lather creation, the viscosity control, if you're looking at liquid detergents and how the network forms. But if you go to the personal care, surfactants have additional role of emulsification, thickening, wettening, and also with this COVID, surfactants as having an additional role as an antimicrobial. And then also surfactants can take different kinds of these forms to give a different kind of network formation and help in giving the different benefits that you expect from a product.
Sir, can I just interrupt if you can switch on the slideshow?
Now I did. Sorry about that. So if you look at the non-ionic surfactants that are being used extensively in personal care and home care, so you start with the fatty alcohols, which are commonly used as emulsifiers, thickening agent. Then you have the alkoxylated fatty alcohols, again wetting agents, solubilizers, most commonly used in household and personal care products. We have the ethylene propylene block polymers. They are good gelling properties, so that makes them interesting for cosmetic products as emulsifiers. Then we have the alkyl phenol ethoxylates. These are not used that much these days because of ecotoxicological reasons. Alkyl polyglucosides are extensively used these days in detergents, personal care cleansers. Then you have the ethoxylated oils and fats. From the lanolin and castor oil, they are mainly used in cosmetic industry. You have the straight and ethoxylated alkanolamides. They are used as foam boosters. The ethoxylated fatty acids that are used as excellent emulsifiers for cosmetic household. And then you have the sorbitol and the sorbitol esters that I've talked about, emulsifiers, solubilizers, wetting agents. They are used in pharmaceutical, cosmetic, food industry. The sugar esters, which are kind of mild surfactants, and they can be used as emulsifiers with emollient properties. And then we have the amine oxides, which are basically the solubilizers in detergents, and they are compatible with other surfactants, and they can also basically can work in the slightly acidic or neutral formulas. Now, if we go to the anionic surfactants that are currently used in the industry, you have the carboxylates, and then there are various kind of carboxylates, the carboxylated salts that are used in soap bars, the ester carboxylates that have good foaming properties used in shampoos, the ether carboxylates, the emulsion stabilizers. Then they are stable also in the presence of alkali and acid. Then we also have the commonly used sulfates that the LAS, SLS, so they are used extensively in detergent, cosmetic shampoos, the alkyl ether sulfates, then the amide ether sulfates, and also the alkyl glycerol sulfates, which also have good foaming properties. So I think we went through this slide with a couple of our speakers. Surfactants are seeing a high demand in the hand wash category now, because they not only help clean the dirt, but also with their hydrophobic part, they can actually attract the grease membrane of the virus and then ruptures the membrane of the virus. And then with the water, the surfactants along with the broken virus membrane are washed away. So surfactants are becoming increasingly important in the hand wash category. So now, if we look, and a lot of the previous speakers already touched upon this point. So in the surfactant, in the COVID era, what are the drivers that are basically affecting the market dynamics of the surfactant? So if we look at performance, the performance is important to the product success, but now people are wanting more. So they are asking for multiple functionality other than only having effectiveness. The environmental impact, definitely very important. Sustainability, biodegradability, people are looking at milder formulations, so they are not irritant to the skin. Then the changing households, like the growing urbanization, people moving from cities to villages. Then also country-wise, there is formats. Some people like liquids, some people like solids. Then their preferred machine wash format also determines what is the surfactant volume that will be required in different countries, different regions. Hand washing still remains very important for many households, so surfactants play a very important role there. And then there are the dishwashing products, which also require a different kind of surfactants, probably milder ones. And also, as we are seeing globally, the specialty surfactant supply are becoming more and more concentrated. Now, what are the risk trends? I think already Dr. Bala and the other speakers talked about this. So a lot of the governments are having very stringent regulations. So nowadays, in a lot of the products, there is this new free from, so they need to have a free from, maybe sulfate free or a silicone free or a phthalate free or a formaldehyde free. So this is becoming very important. So it's very important that what is the surfactant you are using and what are the end products of those surfactants, whether it's in manufacturing or whether it's your raw material source. So that's very important. And then there are a lot of literature nowadays on side effects of chemical-based personal care products, as more and more people are looking for clean and green. And then among the customers, there is a mistrust of clean and green labels, because they think that maybe what they are getting on the label is not what it is there. So they often scrutinize the ingredient lists, and also they have a question on the product efficacy, whether they are really clean or green. But there are a lot of opportunities also in the surfactant market, because there's with this COVID, there's an enormous rise in health awareness, sustainability, and also increase in demand for personal care products. A recent Mintel study showed that in India, they did a study on around 3,000 people who actually start the internet and are well aware of sustainability. And they saw that around 20% of the respondents want vegan ingredients, 17% of them want organic ingredients, and 16% of them are looking for reproducible raw materials. So even in India, people are becoming very aware of what they want in their products. And then with this COVID, there are new innovations in skincare products, like the hack biology. Is like people are not looking only at anti-aging product, but they are looking for products that can give longevity. Then basically they are also looking at elevated engineered natural ingredients. So they are looking at both sustainability and organic source of the surfactants or the end products. Clean beauty is becoming another important sector. So people are looking at clean and well-being, and also hyper hygienic, like multitasking products that can give you benefit, but also germ protection. And because we are constantly using mask these days, so there is a new term called maskne, like products that can be mask friendly. And then there is also a lot of focus on waste-free claims. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. It was very well put in. So now we move ahead after these thought-provoking sessions that today we saw and we heard from all the speakers. They were really very, very thought provoking. And actually, it has led to a lot of questions coming up in the mind. But before we go ahead with the questions, I would like to just make an announcement to all the participants that the participation certificates are now available on the in the auditorium, webinar auditorium. So as soon as you go to the auditorium, just refresh the button which is there for certificates, e-certificates, and the participants can download their certificates. So now we go ahead with our question and answer sessions, because I am sure I am waiting for these question answer sessions, because a lot of things to discuss and ponder on, which has even brought in questions, several questions. So the first question goes to Professor Bhagwat. Bhagwat sir, are there any surface coatings which can self sanitize? Because today we are hearing of so many such type of coatings.
Actually, yes. I did not present that, but there is indeed a surface or a study where they have prepared polyurethane coating, which is based on cuprous oxide. And with that, they have found a log reduction of more than 3 PU coating, which is with cuprous oxide on steel, on glass, and there are results showing that their activity lasts much longer than simple sprays, which would be then going away.
Okay. So does it stay for a longer time?
Yes, they
For
haven't said exactly what length, but it could be for months.
okay. So another
Very similar to the way we have copper-based paints to be attached to ships for preventing those barnacle attachments. Copper is very effective in that. Similarly, this copper oxide is even more active than copper metal, and these coatings work.
okay. Thank you so much, sir. That was so. I have next question. Actually, both Dr. Nirmal as well as Dr. Gharat can take it. Sophrolipid is a surface active glycolipid, and it is structurally related molecule like acids and lactonic forms. So each form has a different, each composition has a different property on its own. So which structure is more actively it acts on biocides, anti-cancer, spermicide, cytotoxic, and pro-inflammatory. So which the lactonic form
Yeah,
or is in the acidic form?
yeah, it's the lactonic form. That's more antibacterial, antiviral, because that acts like a complete lipid. Lactonic form is it's already reported, and people have actually designed the processes where they can actually get a higher percentage of lactonic form and very little of the acid form. So they have already patents. There are several patents on that.
Okay.
So I think Dr. Nirmal has replied. Lactonic form is of course higher antimicrobial character, but then many times since it's a hydrophobic, okay, it takes some acidic form also to get it blended properly. So that's what our reading basically.
Thank you so much, sir. Dr. Bala, I have a question for you. So,
Yeah.
yes, sir. So, are there any regulatory requirements for surfactants specifically in India?
Uh, Madam, to answer these questions, the
Yes.
lead countries are European Community and the USA. And as of now in India, as I mentioned in my presentation about this registration, evaluation, the authorization of chemicals already put in place in EC, whereas it just started percolating in our country. This is a voluntary requirement. One manufacturer has to follow these regulations to come out before coming out his product. So it has just percolated and started. Very soon, the legislation will come into place because in our country, so many ministries are involved in giving the approval for this scheme.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay, madam. Thank you, madam.
So we see a bright future. That should.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Dr. Kaushik, I have a question for you. Where do you see the future of surfactant as an essential ingredient when new trends in personal care, with respect to new trends in personal care?
So, ma'am, means I think surfactants are often the backbone of all the products that we use, like the personal care or home care, right? So surfactants will always remain important part because the foaming, a lot of the weighting, emulsification, all those properties come from But where is the origin and the source of the raw materials or how the surfactants are made, that will become more important, like whether they're clean, whether the process is sustainable or not. So those things probably will be becoming more important, but surfactant will always remain important. So probably we'll see more trend towards biosurfactants, surfactants made from the microbial origin and those kind of things. But surfactants are an essential part.
Okay, thank you, sir. So, Dr. Bhagavat, I have a question for you. If surfactants work as antimicrobials, are these then biodegradable? So that's a very tricky question.
Very good. Good question.
Sir,
I think,
cannot hear
Sunil, you are mute.
Sir, you are muted. Can you please?
Yeah,
Yes.
sorry. Very good question. Let me give you an example. We use sugar as a preservative at home. When you make all those murabbas and jams, we are using sugar as a preservative. And at the same time, sugar solution, if you just leave it lying around, it will decompose and it will get degraded. Basically, what we are saying is it's a function of concentrations. At higher concentrations, these are antimicrobial and they will not get degraded by microbes. At lower concentrations, typically the concentrations at which these will get discharged into environment, they would be very easily degradable. Unless we are talking about materials like quaternary ammonium, which will require even lower concentration to become degradable. But it's a function of concentration.
Okay. Thank you. So one more question for Dr. Gharat. Do you really see biosurfactants for becoming commercial in future?
Very good question for me. Actually, as everybody mentioned, these biosurfactants, I will talk specifically for sophrolipids. These are there from 60s, okay, 1960s, and many applications mentioned. But then at Godrej, we really started it basically from a commercialization point of view. Okay, so last 4 years we are working on the sophrolipids, and we produced very successfully few tons kind of pilots. We are selling it, and now I'm very happy to tell you that we are coming up with a full-scale industrial plant for sophrolipid. Okay, we are already selling in many applications. I think so. That is the answer of the question itself, basically. So it's definitely going to get commercial, and I think all this range, okay, Dr. Nirmal mentioned. So this range is going to be commercial in the future. I'm very sure.
Dr. Nirmal, sir said that it will be commercial, but do you think biosurfactants can replace the conventional synthetic surfactants?
Well, I mean, eventually that has to happen. I mean, look, I mean, we have already messed up this planet significantly,
Yes.
Everything from the renewable resource has to come in. So we have the bio-based surfactants like alkyl polyglucosides. That's one great thing. But at the same time, if you basically have a fermentation technology and if you get very efficient surfactants, I think the ecological balance will be well restored. So I think that's the responsibility for everybody and every practicing scientist and every industry and every nation. So it has to come. As I said, in 2015, there were just about 10 manufacturers, and in 2020, we have more than 25 manufacturers who are actually commercially offering all over Japan, China, US, Europe. So we do have commercial supplies of biosurfactant now. And actually they are using in home care, I mean, home care products typically don't make a lot of money, right? Unlike your personal care products. So they are being used in home care. So you can see that in the current form, whatever the way they are available, they are being used. So that trend will continue.
So in short, it has opened up a big avenue for an opportunity for the industry to start in and go ahead in that.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Okay. So, Dr. Bhagavat, one last question, because I have been dying to, and everyone has been dying to ask this, because newspapers nowadays, we are not able to actually take the newspapers. So which is the best way to sanitize newspapers, whether you spray some sanitizer or iron? So what is it that how we can be safe with them?
See, what we are worried about in the case of newspapers is the external surface, not the inner surfaces. Those inner surfaces in the press have gone through higher temperatures. So it is basically the outer surface which is kept as fold probably on the road and handled by 10 people before it comes to your home. And if you spray it with any liquid, it is not going to be readable for you for the next maybe half an hour. So you don't want to do that. And the second option, if people have suggested, is again heat it back with an ironing to be done. That's too much of an exercise. The option which is really good for newspaper-like items is having a UV box. If you have a UV box at the entrance of your home, you place that item there for a few seconds, whatever is required, 30 seconds or something, and that item is ready to use. Without any ill effects of that ultraviolet on your hand, you have sanitized the newspaper sufficiently. That would be my recommendation for newspaper.
Okay, thank you so much. That was really an interesting answer. With that, we have come to the end of our webinar. And I would request now Mr. Shekhar Surve to kindly give a vote of thanks. So, Mr. Surve, he is Secretary Otai. Mr.
Yeah,
Surve.
hi.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thanks. It's very hard to give vote of thanks when you come to end of such a wonderful webinar. And my full compliments to the entire Otai-Wz Zone team, the webinar organizing committee, all the list of esteemed speakers for successfully, enlightening the audience about the technicalities of the different aspects, as well as keeping it very simple to understand. So I'm sure as consumers, we are also having so many brands to choose, so many options to choose from. I think this webinar has really thrown some light on how to, pick up a sanitizer or for that matter, look at the label and see if you can find some of those ingredients which have been talked about in this particular webinar. So let me begin with thanking all the sponsors. I thank Godrej Industries and Fair Labs for their gold sponsorship. I thank Techno Group of Industries for their silver sponsorship. And we thank you very much for your support, and we look forward to your support in the future programs organized by Otai and Otai-Wz Zone in particular, because West Zone will be coming out with more such things and will be leading to a bigger event called FOIC. We had one such big event in 2019, and soon after a year or a couple of years, we'll come out with another big event like this. Then let me thank ICT for their valuable support, and also thank ISCC and MPOC for supporting this event. We look forward to their continuous support from these esteemed organizations in future as well. Organizing such a webinar is a Herculean task, and everybody knows how much time and how much effort has gone into organizing this particular webinar. So I wish to thank webinar chairman, Mr. U. Shekhar from Galaxy, co-chairman, Dr. Rajiv Churi, convener, Mr. Achyut Mirachkar, and co-convener, Professor R.D. Kulkarni, from bringing out such a wonderful topic and engaging esteemed speakers, to highlight the importance of. I wish to express my gratitude to today's speakers, Dr. Bala Subramaniam. I will not go into the details of their credentials because a lot have been said about it. I thank Professor Sunil Bhagwat. I thank Dr. Nirmal Koshti, Dr. Sandeep Bharat, Dr. Kaushik Mukherjee for sharing their knowledge and experience with us. I also wish to thank Dr. Renuka for being such a nice, wonderful moderator for the day and bringing out the essence of the seminar and the topics and the knowledge to the delegates. My wholehearted thanks to all the delegates for registering in large numbers and making this mega webinar a grand success. We look forward to your presence in our future events for a mutual benefit. I would like to thank Mr. Umesh Gaikwad, our office support staff, for his support and bringing the money by sending invoices and doing the office work. A very special thanks to the team Exicon for managing the entire event seamlessly. thanks to Heenal, Sachin, Urbil, and the entire backup team. I don't know their names very nicely, so please excuse me for that. And with this, we come to close of this wonderful webinar. I thank you very much, and do come in large numbers in our next events. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Over to
Mr.
you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shekhar. But before we log off and we say thank you to everyone, I would request all the participants to kindly download their e-certificates from the webinar auditorium. And as well as I will also like to announce that all the recordings of the webinar will be shared through emails on the IDs which you have registered in. With that, I would like to thank you, all of you, once again for listening this very, very thought-provocative and informative seminar. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, madam.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you, Shekhar.